Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and I am at a little campground called the King William campground just near Derwent Bridge in Tasmania. There's not much here. In fact, I'm the only person here so far. It's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's interesting. There's a river going all the way through here, and it's got all these twists and turns and bends in it, which I really like. It's an open area here, which I've chosen to put the car here. There's obviously been campers here, lots of campsites, and all the way down the track over there as well. So there's plenty of room if anyone else comes here tonight. I tell you what, it is bitterly cold here. There's a breeze blowing and it is coming off some snow-capped mountain somewhere. But I'll tell you what, there's a bit of blue sky. You know what? I was looking around thinking, what am I going to shoot today or tonight? And on the way here, by the way, I went on the road from Queenstown, so it's a fair way. It's about 80 kilometres, and there's not much really to see. It's just these winding roads up and down. I went to see Nelson Falls, which was a fantastic little hideaway in the mountains there, and loved it down there. All the ferns and the covered rocks and the moss, and the waterfall itself was just absolutely stunning. So love that. If you're in the area, definitely go and have a look at Nelson Falls. So back here at this spot, you can see the water coming down and around here. Now, where the Milky Way galactic core is going to rise tonight is pretty much directly down over that way. So there's over the other side, there's quite a lot of dead logs. I think at different times of the season, this probably floods when they let a lot of water out of Lake St. Clair. And that's why all the trees are dead. But, you know, it's quite stark and barren, but you know what? That can make a really interesting nightscape, especially with the running water coming through the foreground. So I'll have a look and see what happens. Now, as I was thinking before, there's quite a lot of blue patchy sky around here. So you just never know. Even though I'm really only here just to camp the night before I move on, I might get a little adventure out of this, and why not? I mean, that's what this Tasmanian trip is all about. Just seeking out new adventures in places that I haven't been before. Now, as I was driving to this location, I drove past Mount King William. I've got to get that right. And it's, you know, it's a mini cradle mountain. It's got that sort of cradle shape about it. And I thought to myself, gee, that looks like a great composition. It's not very far off the road. It's a big mountain. And I think it would ideally suit a longer focal length lens, because I don't really want to walk through a whole heap of bush to get to it. But then I just remembered I left my 50mm lens at home, because I can remember thinking to myself, oh, what lenses am I going to need in Tasmania? And I thought, well, 50mm, that's probably unlikely. So straight away, I'm thinking, okay, I've got a 35mm, so that just might have to do. But I think it will line up perfectly for the Milky Way to come up over the top of the mountain. And anyway, I'll see. Look, if it clears off later like it did last night, it's only about 10 k's back down the road there. It's not far away from here. And I think it's worth the trip. And you know, if it works out the way I think it can, even with my 35mm lens, hey, I've just got to have a go, don't I? But at the moment, I think I'm just going to relax. There's still a fair bit of daylight left in this spot. And I'll just kick back in the car, have a cuppa or something like that, and we'll wait and see what happens tonight. Okay, well, I've bitten the bullet. I'm going to do a time lapse. Going to be a day tonight. I'm going to have a slow panning motion across here because I'm using a Zeppon Pons, which is a pan head here. So I've got my camera tripod really, really low. Now, one of the things that's important when you're panning a time lapse is to make sure it doesn't go on angles. So I've got my little caravan level here on top of the this has got a bowl head, so I can just move it around and get it exactly right. It's the same thing I use on my star tracker. Hopefully you can see that. It's just a two-way little bubble head, and it's very accurate. So all I need to do then is place this device straight on top of it like that, screw it on, and that will be level. Now I'm going to put my Sony battery on that. It's a Sony NPF battery that goes on these things. That'll last all night, no trouble at all. Now from there I need to get a ball head to put on top of this. I'm going to be using my Nikon Z6 Mark II camera with a Nikon 14-24 f2.8. That's going to sit on there and just pan around. Now one thing I'll definitely be doing here is using a lens warmer because it's going to get pretty dewy, I reckon, tonight. So I've got the lens warmer here and a battery pack to run that. Also what I will do, because this is going to be going for quite a few hours, I'm going to put some auxiliary USB power into the camera, and that will keep it running all night, no worries at all. Okay, so I've got it all set up and running. Now it's going to be shooting for about 4 hours. It's in P mode, program mode, auto ISO. It's going to ramp the shutter speed and the aperture. Now, I've started a bit later than I should have because the colour's gone in the sky. There's some really nice colour there before, but the clouds look good and there's a fair bit of movement in those clouds. It's at f2.8, 1/30th of a second, ISO 100 currently. That's where it's set. I've set my white balance to about 5500. That's pretty much daylight white balance. Mainly because I wanted to get some, I didn't want it too blue in the daytime. But anyway, I can change it later, but I'd just like to get it somewhere near it in camera. And I've set my pan to go from down there where it's facing now to over here. And in the second part of this time lapse, the Milky Way is going to rise up over there. Now, I don't know how much Milky Way we're going to see, because if there's a lot of cloud, we won't see any. It may be a total failure, but on the other hand, it might just work out okay. Now, I've got a lens warmer on, but I haven't plugged it in yet. I'm just going to save the battery because they go through them pretty heavily, especially these smaller batteries. But at least I can check the percentage on these, so I'll know that. I've got my other power bank on now, running the camera, and that'll go no worries at all. All right, leave it there and see what happens. So you can see I've got the camera set up over here, just behind the car, so no worries at all. And I can do stuff here at the car, and I don't think any of that will upset that camera unless I turn a heap of lights on. But even that, because it's mainly over the other side of the river here that it's shooting, and the water itself, because it's right on the top of the bank. Speaking of lights and things, I might just get something to eat and go from there. All right, well, once again, I'm looking at something here that's really easy. It's basically 2-minute noodles, I suppose, but it's a bit better than that. It's creamy chicken soup, but all I have to do is pour boiling water into this container. So no washing up. I'll tell you what, anything that doesn't have very much washing up, I'm up for. So I've just boiled my water. Okay, let's see how we go with it. So I've got to pour it up to the line. Can I do it? Yes, of course I can. It's not that hard. It's not rocket science. Well, maybe it is, but anyway, I think that's up to the line. Stay there. Now, all I got to do is stir it. Gee, it's getting hot. Maybe I should have had it inside something. I'll tell you what, that is pretty darn good. I might have to get some more of these. Continental. All right. Now, it's just a matter of waiting. You know, when it comes to nightscape photography, there is an awful lot of waiting and eating. So I've just done a little check on the time-lapse camera over there. It's been going for probably about 45 minutes, maybe a bit longer. It's now shooting at f2.8, ISO 320, 13-second shutter speed. So I set the interval to 18 seconds. So what that means is it's going to choose the shutter speed, and I think it'll choose 15 seconds as a maximum shutter speed, and that'll leave a 3-second interval between each shot. So when it gets to 15-second shutter speed, I don't think, there might be a preview on the back, but sometimes if you get too close to the interval, you don't have time to show the preview, but that doesn't matter. It uses less battery power when it doesn't show the preview. But currently, so the ISO is ramping, the shutter speed is almost finished ramping, and that's good. So those clouds are moving pretty quickly, but there is still over there, and particularly in the west and the southwest, there's quite a bit of clear sky. So I'm still hoping we get some Milky Way action tonight. All right, well, I've been sitting in the car here for quite a while, just waiting for that time lapse to get further through. Now it's gone through about an hour and a half, maybe a bit more. It's completely dark and completely clouded out at the moment. So I went out and checked out, the little tiny preview was coming up, and I noticed that the shutter speed had gone all the way to 30 seconds. Now, this is something that I've done before, and you know, I've done this so many times and I still need a checklist. I forgot to check the interval priority tick box. So if I don't check that, it'll push the exposure up until it reaches 30 seconds because it thinks the image is underexposed. And it actually is underexposed because it's completely black out there. There's no starlight or anything. So I don't know how it's going to go with the motion time lapse. The timing will get out of sync. But anyway, look, I'm hoping that the stars come out. It is predicted to get clear later. So I'm just going to have to sit it out and wait. And I'm hoping that the shutter speed comes back to about 15 seconds where I started this whole thing. So it was going really well. Oh, these things happen, I tell you what. But, you know, patience is a virtue and persistence is a virtue. And I don't know what else I can think of. A sense of humor. You've got to have a sense of humor when you're doing nightscape photography, because I can tell you what, things are going to go wrong sooner or later. Doesn't matter how much of this stuff you've done, you will make mistakes. I do all the time. Nevertheless, I'm just going to sit here and wait a bit longer. I might even have a little bit of a nap, and hopefully the stars will come out. Well, that's all I need. I've got a camper van coming in. I don't know where he's going. No idea. But I think I'm going to have trouble with that, because he's going to be shining lights all over the place. Man, oh man, oh man. One thing after another. Oh, well, there's the torches. He's shining them. Oh man, literally all happening tonight. I've got camper vans going past. I've got time lapse being not doing the right thing because I, stupid me, put the wrong settings in. And lo and behold, it is clouded out. There's clouds everywhere out there at the moment. I'll tell you what, this video is going to have to be called bloopers or something like that. I don't know. But I'll tell you what do you do when everything is going wrong for a night photo shoot? Well, I'll tell you what I do. I make myself a cuppa and a cookie. I mean, you got to make something out of it. I'm here, so what am I going to do? I'm just going to sit it out and see what happens. But this night could be an absolute write-off. In fact, you might not even see this video. We'll just wait and see. Well, good morning. It's bitterly cold here. I'm enjoying a bit of breakfast, saying goodbye to my camper friend. Well, I hope he enjoyed his stay. Okay, so this is what happened last night. I did get very frustrated and I sat in the car for literally hours waiting for the sky to clear. It was showing patches, and a couple of times there was some good signs. Jumped out of the car, got the camera set up, and then the clouds all came back again. Now, as far as the time lapse was concerned, it worked perfectly, except the shutter speed extended out to 30 seconds. And it shows all this cloud that came and brooded around the place. Now, hopefully I can make something decent out of it. There's not a whole lot of stars in there, but even so, I think it may look pretty good. So my intention last night was to shoot long exposure foregrounds. I'm not doing any light painting at all because it's just too big. I can't light this scene. So long exposure ambient foregrounds. And then I was going to do tracked skies. Beautiful spot here to set the tracker up. So I had all that set up ready to go. And I actually shot my ambient foreground exposures here, which I think look fantastic with the river in the foreground. And then I thought to myself, okay, I'm just waiting for some patches of sky for the tracker, which I did get. So that happened okay. I just had to wait it out. Then I thought, well, am I going to go down to the mountain? It's about 13 kilometers down the road back that way. I said, yep, I'm here in Tasmania. I may not get back to this area for years, maybe never, who knows? So I jumped in the car. It was a bit cloudy. There was still stars showing, so I thought, okay. And then I thought, what lens am I going to use? I've got my 35mm Nikon f1.8. The only longer lens I've got is the Tamron 28-200, which I'm filming with now. It's a Sony E-mount. I tried that one as well. It was noise city, let me tell you. Man, oh man, it's a good daylight lens, but long exposure night photography, I don't think so. However, maybe, you just never know. I did shoot it 2-minute long exposures, ISO 3200 at about 70mm focal length. Maybe we'll get something there, not sure. I also put that on the tracker and I had better success with the long lens on the tracker. You can be the judge of that. And so what's the lesson of this video? Well, you know, it's probably the same lesson that I talk about so many times over the journey of my travels around. And that is to be consistent with your approach. It doesn't matter what comes against you, because let's face it, there's always going to be challenges, problems, campers, who knows what it'll be. They come and they go. But the way that you think and the way that you approach the scene has to remain the same. Always look for a positive outcome and a positive solution, even though sometimes it seems like it's easier just to give up and go home. Well, you know, I'm hundreds and hundreds of kilometers away from home here, so there's no way knowing that's going to happen. But anyway, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Look, the day started pretty good. There's a bit of sunshine around. I don't know where my next leg of this Tasmanian adventure takes me, but wherever it is, I hope you guys are there to join me. I'll see you in the next video.